All right, time for our Week 12 recap. We're going to go ahead and start with Georgia versus Texas. This was in Athens. We both had Georgia winning this game comfortably, but I don't think we saw a 25-point victory happening here. I mean, there was a scenario that Texas laid a huge egg here.
Hey, I had it 35-20, so I was pretty close.
That is pretty close.
And I
I
did
just,
say I thought that Georgia was going to pretty comfortably win this game, and then they did.
yeah, I think I had Georgia winning by like maybe 8 or 9 points. I think it was 8 because I thought it would probably be closer to a one possession game, but I feel like Georgia will be able to perform with in the output they were able to do offensively here. That didn't surprise me. I think what surprised me the most was Texas only scoring 10 points. I just thought that they'd do a little bit more in this game. And to be fair, it was 14-10 until Georgia scored and then kicked it onside and scored again. So, I mean, if you look at the game from that perspective, they played a competitive half of football and then just their offense just stalled out and could not do anything moving the ball after that.
Yeah, and then they couldn't run the ball at all. I mean, what they end up with like 30 yards or something.
They
It was
had
something just,
23 total team rushing yards, which is
gosh.
one of the things we talked about going into this game was Texas's inability to run the football this season, which is insane because I mean they've returned some of the same backs they had past like 2 years. Like Wisner's been great for them. Last year he had 1,000 yards. He wasn't even supposed to be one of the top three running backs on the team. He ends up going for 1,000 last year. This year he's got to be averaging sub 4.5 yards a carry. He's not really playing well, but I don't think that's a him problem. I think that has a lot more to do with the offensive scheme and the offensive line play right now.
I would
They're
agree.
not getting good offensive line play.
And they don't have enough in the downfield passing game to compete with a team like Georgia like that and score what they needed to.
They're
That's kind of what
super
I
one
expected.
dimensional wide receiver. Ryan Wingo's really their only threat to move the ball behind the line of scrimmage or downfield, which is mainly going to be behind the line of scrimmage play.
Yeah, with Arch Manning back there, it is.
Yeah, and that ended up showing in this game when I'm sorry, I almost said A&M. I was looking at the ticker. They were talking about A&M on the college football playoff rankings. When you look at Texas, I mean, they just have been predominantly moving the ball from behind the line of scrimmage play. Screens, swing passes, any sort of stretch run option or RPO, that's what they were doing. Nothing was getting pushed down the field. Georgia was able to stall them out, and there was no backup plan. There was no if we can't move the ball doing it the way we do it, can we move it by throwing it down the field? That wasn't an option. And then they just kind of rolled over. So that shows me everything I need to see about Texas right now. Their really only big win to me is the win at Oklahoma, or I guess it's neutral site. But beating Oklahoma is a great win. But I mean, we broke down that game a couple weeks back, and I really feel like if Oklahoma has a healthy offense and they don't lose the turnover battle, they win that football game. Texas obviously had the huge punt return to probably win them that football game as well and put it away. Texas has been doing stuff like that all season. There was not enough magic on punt returns in the whole world and swing passes and screens that could get them to win this football game.
No, I mean, you don't go to Georgia and get any magic on the road against them.
No, Georgia owns Texas right now. They own Sark, Arch Manning. I mean, there's no amount of Manning magic that he could bring to the table to make this game legitimately close. So, regardless of the fact that they were competitive early, Gunnar Stockton played incredible, going 24 for 29, 229 passing and four passing touchdowns, tacking on another 29 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. So, five total touchdowns for him. He played incredibly. He had one interception, but to be honest with you, I mean, to be able to play the kind of ball they're playing and not throw interceptions is almost impossible. So that was bound to happen. Texas has some athletes back there, so I wasn't surprised by that. But he played incredible. I think the biggest play was the 30-yard touchdown to London Humphreys, extending their lead to two possessions. I mean, total strike. London Humphreys kind of bangs his way into the end zone there and puts them up by 11. That set the tone. Like, okay, Texas has to respond. If they can't respond by pushing the ball down the field, this game is over right now. And like we just said, Texas just rolled over. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't get anything going behind the line of scrimmage like they want to do. And downfield passing just was not an option for them, apparently. So that's where this game ended up going. I mean, Georgia just did what they wanted to do in the second half. Kicking that onside and scoring again after going up by 11 was pretty gutsy because you didn't really need to do that. But I think Georgia just knew they're like, I don't think Texas can score anyway. Let's just go ahead and get the ball back and score again.
Go ahead and put it out of reach.
Yeah, go ahead and put the final dagger in the coffin. That's exactly what they did. I was really impressed by how they coached in this game. The staff for this Georgia team, defensively and offensively, looks like they're improving their units week by week. Like we just talked about in our top 25 playoffs, I feel like Georgia has been one of the only teams throughout the season with an early loss that has improved week by week. I feel like Ohio State has improved in certain areas as the weeks have gone on, but I feel the same way about them I have since like week 3.
I mean, they just haven't really had a chance to prove themselves in any of these games.
Yeah, I feel like Georgia has shown up on some of the biggest stages so far this season out of all teams. What they did in Starkville going in there and just absolutely tearing State apart just proved that they're taking care of business right now. They're not goofing around. They're not, eking by with these close wins, having to come back 30 to 3 at halftime against South Carolina. Like they're taking care of business
They're
and they're beating
focused on
teams.
their goal.
They're laser focused. They're physical, like Kirby Smart said in his post game press. Like they want to be the most physical team on every football field. Like whether they have the best athletes or not, they're going to bring the mentality that they are going to play as physical a football game as possible. And if you don't want the smoke, then get off the field. They have that mentality, and I think that with the kind of talent they've got, if they can keep that mentality in the playoffs, they can beat anybody. And I don't see that changing. Kirby Smart coach football teams always are like that to me, and this has been the least physical team I think he's ever coached. But regardless, you've still got guys like Gunnar Stockton at quarterback who are running people over when they should probably be trying to protect themselves. So that's the character of this football team. They're all in, and I like them down the stretch. All right. Moving on to Florida, going to Oxford for a much anticipated game, and not because Florida has a good record and has playoff potential, but because they want to hire Lane Kiffin. And most fans looked at this as just an opportunity to scout their future head coach. At least that's what I keep hearing from people who look on the message boards and have been reporting on social media and from fans at the game. I was at this game.
It was also Ole Miss playoff clincher game.
Technically, I
It
once
is.
again am
It
not
is.
gonna get over my skis on this because I think a 14 plus point Egg Bowl loss would eliminate Ole Miss from the
No, we'd have
playoffs.
to beat y'all 70-0 for y'all to miss the playoff. I mean,
I don't know
trust me.
about that, man. With the kind of chaos that can happen, nothing's certain, especially with Ole Miss football. If Lane Kiffin were to leave, and this team were to lose him, I think that also impacts where they rank us. So if let's say he decides to leave between now and the Egg Bowl, or he says he's going to leave after the Egg Bowl, and then we lose. Well, not only did we just end the season on the most sour note possible, you lose to your in-state rival who just needed to win for a bowl game. You lose your coach, who's currently the most sought-after coach in college football and one of the best play callers in college football. And now you got to go to the playoffs, and you're probably a bottom seed, even if you make it. I think the committee looks at that and says, we might not want to put this team in. So that's something to think about. I'm pessimistic as an Ole Miss fan, so I'm looking for the worst options here. But this game was really close in the fourth quarter. I expected this game to be competitive. When Florida shows up, they show up. They showed up against Georgia a couple weeks back, and they had a pretty similar game to this. They were winning 20-17, and then Georgia ended up scoring late and icing the game with the ball and winning 24-20. Ole Miss took a 27-24 lead in the fourth quarter off of an interception by Wyatt Williams. They had a chance to go down and take a 2 possession lead, turned it over on downs on the goal line again. And then Florida proceeds to do nothing with the ball. We end up stopping them and putting on a garbage time touchdown, winning 34-24. This is about what I expected. I didn't expect Florida to be leading most of the game, but I did expect it to be very competitive. So at the end of the day, Florida got completely outgained by Ole Miss. I think it was like a 200-yard separation. Ole Miss went for over 530 total yards on 31 carries, 224, and 3 touchdowns from Kawan Lacey rushing. He had his best game of his career and solidified himself as one of the best players in the SEC with 19 total touchdowns this season. He's been playing great football down the stretch. So Ole Miss has found a running game which they didn't have this time last year moving into the playoffs. And they did miss the playoffs, I think, largely in part because they could not close out games running the ball. I think this was a huge part of this game. I think if Ole Miss had the same team from last year running the ball, we would have lost this game. I don't think we could have closed it out. But time of possession here, Ole Miss had 38 minutes time of possession. That means we chewed the clock and we ran the ball the whole game pretty much. And Trinidad still threw for over 300, but we did a lot of running the football that we would not have normally done with the players we had last year. So being able to kind of open up the playbook and say, all right, we want to choose some clock here. We want to hand off the ball on 3rd and 8. We have the ability to do that now. That opens up the playbook tremendously for this offense. So with that being said, Ole Miss goes 5 for 7 on 4th down. 2 of those 4th downs being inside the 5-yard line and not coming away with any points. That was tough. Ole Miss also had a hands to the face penalty get called incorrectly by the officials that could have resulted in Ole Miss getting a 1st down and not taking the field goal that they made on that play and getting a touchdown instead. But the officials made a incorrect call. I won't get too much into it because we ended up winning the game by 10 anyway, but not a great call by the officials. Lane Kiffin was pretty upset about that. Lagway ended up playing a pretty good game to start. He had a couple deep balls in this game that made me see that when his offensive line holds up, which we did not get any pressure on the quarterback in this game, which was surprising. He's still a pretty talented player, like we thought he was. So he can make the throws. His offensive line, his receivers around him just have to make plays. So I think that's something to keep an eye on as he maybe looks to transfer or stay if a specific said person ends up coming and coaching there next year. I just saw a notification earlier that said he followed Lane Kiffin on Instagram. So that's really important.
Huge news.
Huge news. I actually saw one of Ole Miss's staffers going to talk to him after the game, and then one of the Florida staffers like went and grabbed him, like pulled him away. So it's kind of like I forgot what game it was the other day. I think it was maybe it was Lenore Sellers after a game. Somebody tried to talk to him. It was super funny, but anyway, this game was really competitive. I think a lot of people expected a blowout here, but Ole Miss almost comes in clutch with a backdoor cover here, just missing the cover by I think a point to half a point.
I expected a blowout and was wrong.
Yeah, it's just chalk rarely ever flies in an SEC night game, so I didn't feel too great about Ole Miss dominating in this one. Had a lot of chances to, a lot of statistical categories that made sense for them too, but at the end of the day, Florida came to play. So really interesting game. I had a great time. Really, really cool to see Ole Miss finish another season 7-0 at home. If Lane Kiffin ends up leaving, he's left behind a really solid legacy of really, really great home win stretches. I think we're like 35-3 at home since like 2023 or something, or 2021. I can't remember what the timestamp was, but that's insane. As an Ole Miss fan, I can't even believe I'm saying that. But there's a lot of drama with him right now. Who knows what's going to happen? I just continue to stick by the same statement that I feel like really only Lane Kiffin knows what he's going to do. And at the end of the day, whatever he decides to do, Ole Miss is a better program because of what he did there. And if he leaves tomorrow, Ole Miss can get a guy like John Sumrall in there, and I think they can still have a good football program. If he stays, he could build a dynasty there. That's probably really optimistic, but I just genuinely don't think he can't do what he can do at Ole Miss, and for some reason think he needs to do better at Florida. You know, but needless to say, I'm not Lane Kiffin. I'm not in his inner circle, so I don't know what he's going to do. We'll find out. I don't think there's supposed to be an ultimatum before the Egg Bowl, like everybody was saying, but there's always a chance something comes out before that. So we'll be watching for that. Alabama versus Oklahoma. Final here in Tuscaloosa, 23-21. Oklahoma gets a sneaky win here. We both had Alabama winning this one in a relatively close game. I think I had Alabama by a field goal. Fortunately for Alabama, it was missed field goals that probably cost them this game.
I think I had Bama by like 10.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
I saw some scenarios where Alabama probably did win this game by more than a touchdown. And if you look at the box score and you cover up with your hand that little spot at the bottom where it says turnovers,
You would pick
Alabama wins
Bama
this
to
game.
win 10 times out of 10.
Yeah,
And it's kind of the same thing with Oklahoma beating Tennessee, too.
that says a lot about Oklahoma and their defense. It does not say a lot about their offense. And as they approach a playoff bid, most likely, I'll factor that in heavily in whatever matchup they find themselves in. I think a matchup against a team like Oklahoma, not against a team like Notre Dame, whether it's at Oklahoma or in South Bend, that doesn't change that much for me. This Oklahoma team is decent at home and on the road because they don't play much differently. Their defense, I mean, at
Defense
home,
travels.
yeah, their defense at home is really good. Their defense away is really good. Their offense is super, super spotty, and largely inconsistent, can't run the ball. I mean, John Mateer, even if he's healthy, needs a lot more wide receiver to be legitimately as threatening as he can be in the passing and rushing game. I'm just shocked that Alabama found a way to lose this football game. I had it being really close, yes, but I was confident Alabama would win. And looking at the box score, not that stats are everything, I watched this game. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Like Alabama outgaining them, Alabama on third down, Alabama with penalties, Alabama with time of possession, Alabama running the ball. All of those things, Alabama was in the positive against Oklahoma in. And then you get all the way to the bottom and you see -3 in turnover margin. And that's the story of the game. Oklahoma gets a pick six. They had a couple of other fumble recoveries that end up getting overturned where they were half a second too late on a hit, where they probably end up getting more fumbles in this game. So I think that there's a lot more left on the table in the turnover margin for Oklahoma. I also think there's a lot more points left on the table for Alabama. So both these teams are really solid, and this doesn't really take away much for me from Alabama. I still think they're capable of winning huge games. I'm not confident in them to run the table and win the national championship like I did in the preseason, but they're still in it. They're still a team that has the characteristics to be able to win almost any matchup on any given day. So as long as Ty Simpson's healthy and he's their quarterback, they can win just about any football game in my eyes. Eli Bowen gets the play of the game here with a 87-yard pick six of Ty Simpson to start off this game. This was a huge play. Turning of the tides, it kind of felt like, no pun intended, that Alabama really was going to have to win this game convincingly throwing the ball. And they continue to try to push the ball down the field even after the pick six. Ty Simpson throws for over 300. They just couldn't score in the red zone when it mattered. Field goals being missed, that was huge. High snap, that's tough. You're going to have high snaps. It's college football. Stuff happens. It's like you go back to the Tyler Buckner fumble snap on the extra point. Like, you can't be perfect on every single play. You can't get mad at your long snapper for missing one snap if he makes 1,000 perfect snaps in the season. That's college football. You know, there's a lot of other things that you can do to win a football game. So don't blame it on the one tiny mistake one guy makes once a season. So I think there's a lot more to it. I think Alabama has a lot to work on. I liked what I saw from them in the run game. They're moving around the running back position a little bit right now. Jam Miller hasn't been healthy all season. I like what they're getting out of some new guys. I think they can slightly run the ball more effectively now. So we'll see how that plays out against maybe some weaker rushing defenses. Auburn not being one of them. So really looking forward to seeing how that plays out in the Iron Bowl.
I think the Iron Bowl is going to be a classic this year.
I think you might be right.
It's going to be insane.
I think the Egg Bowl and the Iron Bowl are shaping up to be a lot better football games than people are giving them credit for. I think it's a huge trap game for Alabama given how much of a rise Auburn is on offensively. If they can play the kind of defense they played in the first half of the season paired with the offense that they now are playing, Auburn absolutely could win this football game. But Alabama's defense has been playing really well too. So regardless of the fact that they lost this game, I thought Alabama's defense actually was one of the best units on the field. They played really well. Oklahoma's defense is just a notch better, but Alabama's defense is right behind them, playing some really elite football. OU's offense did virtually nothing in this game. Outside of the one John Mateer touchdown run from probably 20 yards out, I really didn't feel like they did too much to impress me in this game.
And the difference was just Oklahoma's defense being able to create more chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Brett Venables, being the defensive minded coach that he is, he's had his eye on this game all season, going into last season after how that badly they beat Alabama last year in Norman. Going into Bryant Denny and being able to beat them again with defense, that's got to feel pretty good. You know, at the end of the day, if I'm Kalen DeBoer playing Oklahoma in the future, if Brett Venables is still the coach, you've got to be able to game plan better against this defense. You know what you're going to get. They want to wreak havoc in the backfield. They want to force errant throws. You have to be able to run the football. You have to. Ole Miss, if we hadn't been able to run the football against Oklahoma, we would have gotten behind the chain for sure. And to be fair, Kalon Lacey had like over 20 carries for less than 80 yards, but he had just enough good runs in this game to give us a chance. So overall, this was a great game, really competitive. You take away one play, maybe going either way, things change a lot. So these teams pretty even in my eyes. I like Alabama with the offense. I'd probably take them on a neutral side if they played again. but OU is a great football team, and they vaulted themselves back into the playoff conversation. USF at Navy, final score 41-38. Navy midshipmen get a signature win against the ranked USF Bulls. This was a disappointing one for me because selfishly, I really wanted to see USF and Byron Brown in the playoffs. I don't want to see Navy in the playoffs. Nothing against our service academies, but I just don't want to watch either Georgia or Ole Miss play the service academy at home in the first round of the playoffs. Like, go ahead, kill me now. I don't want to watch it.
Yeah, that'd be terrible. But they have the capability to win like any game though. Just the way they play. Like,
They
in a
can,
playoff game, they would not win. But like beating USF, like it's just really random with the service academies,
yeah. I mean,
especially when they got a quarterback like Blake Horvath.
he's a really solid player, and Eli Heidenreich has been great too. He had 185 total yards in that win against USF. He's a wide receiver slash halfback that they play kind of all over the field. Smaller guy, but he's super shifty. He's got great hands. Top end speed's solid. He's a really good player. He may actually have an NFL future if he keeps up the kind of production he's got. Which I don't remember the last time Navy put a wide receiver in the NFL that was white, but this dude's a beast. So we may see that happen. Overall, though, I don't have a good feeling about Navy if they were to win this conference championship game for the AAC and make the playoffs. I mean, you saw the result against Notre Dame; they got blown out.
They did play that game without Horvath though.
Yeah,
That impacts it a little bit.
it does impact it for me, but I didn't feel like Horvath was the impact player of this football game. I mean, they put in Braxton Woodson, and he had a huge 20-yard touchdown run that put them up 10 in the third quarter. So, regardless of the fact that he's been playing and he's healthy, they're putting in Braxton Woodson and giving him playing time. It's the way he can do with the football. Regardless, they're going to play the same way. So, I think Blake Horvath is a great quarterback. I think he's absolutely one of the most unsung players in the sport right now. Last year, he had an insane season. Navy is probably going to have him go down as one of the best players he's ever played there. I just don't think he's a huge game changer, to be honest with you. So we'll see what Navy's able to do on the stretch. Got to talk about the winner first, but USF just, I mean, they killed me in this one. Like, I wanted them to win this game so bad. Byron Brown played stupid in this game. Like, he had over 400 total yards and multiple touchdowns. It just didn't matter at the end of the day. It didn't get it done for this Bulls team. But I thought that the rushing defense would be better. They allowed a total of 338 on the ground against Navy, which is to be expected against Navy sometimes. But I expected more out of USF's defense. I just remember the games like against Boise State in the season opener. They put on a tackling clinic, forcing fumbles and boxing up a really solid rushing offense in Boise State, who made the playoffs last year. I know they don't have Ashton Genty this year, but they're still a decent football team, and that their identity is running the football. And they got boxed.
And holding Florida to 16 at Florida.
Yeah, I mean, they dominated Florida in Gainesville. Like, I just thought that this defense had more in the tank. I don't know if they've had some injuries I'm unaware of, or triple option is just a huge weakness in their scheme, but they did not play well. They just kept giving up big play after big play after big play, and Navy was able to throw in some huge pop plays in the passing game. I mean, that really ended up turning the tides on this one at different points where you thought that Navy wasn't going to be able to throw the ball to win, and Eli Heidenreich's wide open for 80 yards, you know? And at the end of the day, you just got to be able to stop the run when you play service academies, and they didn't do it. So USF falls to, I think they're 8-3 right now, or 7-3. They might have two games
I
left.
think they're 7-3.
So they got two more games left on their schedule. I really wish we got to see them maybe do a bit more with this season. I think this is probably Alex Golish's last season as their football coach. There's just too many head coaching vacancies. I see him most likely leaving.
What about Memphis losing too, and they're out of the AAC race now as well?
That didn't really surprise me that much, to be honest with you. Memphis is a good football team, but they've had too many close games this year for me to think that they were going to be able to hold on anymore. An upset was bound to happen. So East Carolina's a good football team.
They only have one conference loss. They're not out of it.
Yeah, I think they're
crazy.
right there. And Caden Hauser's a great quarterback. So
Do you see some of the stuff Mike Wright did in that game?
no, I didn't even see that.
He had like a 50-plus yard punt and the game sealing interception,
Dude,
which is just insanity.
He can play I had no idea that he was doing that. We actually have
It's
already dropped him on
hilarious.
this podcast because he played for Mississippi State for a little while, played for Vanderbilt. I mean, he's played at several teams that he played at Northwestern for a little bit. I mean,
Yeah,
he's been all over the map. And there's a Mike Wright Jewelers like down the street from my office, so we were talking about that, and it reminded us of Mike Wright. This guy is still playing meaningful snaps at all different positions in college football several years down the road. It's just crazy to think that that's what he's doing now. If you had told me that a couple years ago that he'd be getting interceptions and kicking punts for East Carolina, I'd be like, what on earth are you talking about?
absolute legend.
But that's super cool. Shout out to Mike Wright. Give him some love. But that game was tough for me. I ended up picking USF in that game. Who did you have, Landon?
USF dominant.
I felt the same way.
Never trusting Golish again. Overrated coach.
I think he's a good coach. I think there's only so much you can do at a program like USF, but when you've got the kind of guys they got on offense, especially Byron Brown, you just can't lose in football games like that. I mean, Byron Brown's probably one of the greatest group of five quarterbacks that I've ever seen, like talent wise. Maybe not statistically or just overall season output, but physically, I don't know that I've seen a more talented player in the group of five in a long time. Okay, I'm sorry. I gotta give some attention to how bad that was. We're watching Tuesday night action. We've currently got Western Michigan playing NIU. I just watched NIU's punter do like a dribble between his legs with a drop snap on a punt and then proceed to lose the ball behind him, miss falling on it, and then kicking it down inside the 10-yard line and then falling on it again.
Peak Maction.
Gotta love some Tuesday night action, and it looks like Western Michigan's about to go up 35-13
After being
before
down 13 to nothing.
to NIU. Yeah, crazy stuff. Love action. Just I was watching that unfold on the TV next to us as we were recording, and just I had to mention that. So if anybody's watching this and wants to see a crazy play, look that up. Timestamp was like I think like maybe 8 minutes left in the football game, so that's a really bad one. If there was a low lights top 10 on Sports Center, that would be number one. All right, moving on. We've got Cincinnati taking on Arizona at home. Final score here 30-24 in favor of Arizona. Big upset in the Big 12. Cincinnati was still in the Big 12 race, which puts them still in the playoff race. If they were to win this game, they dropped this one. Arizona and Nova Fida put on an offensive clinic, and honestly, I think they controlled this game for most of the time until Cincinnati tried to mount a comeback late there at the end.
Pretty much. And this result really doesn't surprise me. I almost wanted to pick this last week because Scott Satterfield, the coach for Cincinnati, seems like he always has these type of games every season, especially last year. Last year they were 5-2 and lost five in a row to go 5-7. So I kind of had a feeling a game like this was coming for Cincinnati, and it came this past week.
Yeah, my biggest things that I was watching this game were the lines of scrimmage. I felt like Cincinnati had a huge advantage here. They got to the quarterback a little bit with 3 sacks, 9 TFLs as a team. Arizona did not get much pressure on the quarterback. They had 1 sack, but 2 turnovers from Brendan Sorsby in this game, putting Cincinnati -2 in the turnover margin. With it being a one possession game, that's a killer. They got outgained by 150 yards. So whenever you're in the negative margins and turnovers and you get outgained, it doesn't look too good for you. I don't really need to watch too much of the football game probably to know that you lost. That's a pretty big gap right there. 2 possessions and 150 yards. That's a lot. Kedrick Riscano played a pretty solid game. He's starting to come on for them. Ex Ole Miss running back, transferred to Arizona, I think last year. So he's been kind of a rotational player, but he had a 50-yard touchdown in this game that ended up kind of putting the icing on the cake for Arizona here. I mean, Brendan Sorsby had probably one of his worst first halves of the entire season. Maybe going back to the Nebraska game that opened the season. He had 2 interceptions. The run game for Arizona, being able to run the ball, I think that's probably what won it for him in the end, though, because if they hadn't been able to close out the game running the ball, Cincinnati could have stormed back and still won this game. Brendan Sorsby started to get hot there at the end and put together some decent drives, but when it came down to it, Arizona said, all right, well, we've been throwing the ball really well. Fafita had a great game, throwing for almost 300, but let's start handing the ball off. And they pop a huge touchdown run, ice this game, get a big upset win. They moved to 7-3. Definitely hitting the over on the win total for the Wildcats.
Yeah, they've been a surprise, and they're very close to being like 8-2 right now, or 9-1. They barely lost a game to BYU where they choked a 10-point lead with like 5 minutes left. But yeah,
They lost in
surprise
double
team.
overtime there, and then they also had a really tight game against Houston too.
Yeah, they lost to Houston on a game-winning field goal.
So this team is two plays probably away from being right there in the consideration for the Big 12 title, which is insane. 'Cause I don't think this team's near dominant enough to be making a run for a Big 12 title, but they played good football. So all credit where credit's due to Arizona, playing a good season so far. They've got games coming up against their rival, Arizona State. And I think they've got one more matchup other than that.
I think they play Baylor this week.
That'll be a fun game. I think that Baylor's favored in that game, possibly. No, no, no. I think Arizona's favored by 6.5. So Baylor's not a terrible play there. Should be a shootout, if I had to guess. Typically how most Baylor games have been lately. Arizona scoring a lot of points. But this game was interesting. I thought it would be a huge quarterback battle game. Turned out to be that Noah Fafita clearly won that battle today. All right, our next game, Pittsburgh taking on Notre Dame at home in a game, according to Pat Narduzzi, that is irrelevant. That showed on the field. Final score was 37-15 in favor of Notre Dame. I did not really tune into this game very much, to be honest with you. I figured it would kind of turn out like this. After what Pat Narduzzi was saying, it just it didn't sit well with me. I didn't like the feeling of, oh, this game doesn't matter. We're playing a top ranked team, but we don't really give a crap. So if they score 100 on us and we lose, it doesn't matter because it's not a conference game. That's such a ridiculous attitude to have about a football game where you're lining up, you're putting the ball down the hash marks, and your team's out there playing. You're playing for pride. I mean, you're playing to prove what you've been proving all season, and that's who you think you are and what you've been working so hard for. Why on earth would you go out and line it up against another team and say, nah, this game doesn't really matter that much? That bleeds into the locker room. You can't say something like that to the media and then go back to the locker room and say, all right, guys, put your pads on. Let's go play football. Even if you didn't mean it and you're like, guys, I was just saying that for publicity, just to put an emphasis on the fact that conference games should matter more. And the players are all like, oh, yeah, you're right. Well, this game still matters. Let's go play the same way. Well, you just went out in front of the entire country and said that this game doesn't matter to us. So how are we supposed to compute that in our heads and go out and play this game like it matters, like the world's like revolving around this game? In college football, on Saturdays, if you're an athlete that, and you know you're going to be playing, all you're thinking about, you're locking in, all you're thinking about is the game you're playing that day. And if your coach tells you this game doesn't matter, that doesn't sit well with me. I have a hard time thinking of being an athlete and my coach telling me, yeah, don't worry about this one. Even though we're playing one of the best teams in the country, doesn't matter. That's ridiculous. I'm always going to want to go out and compete to the best of my ability. I know those players felt the same way, but it's got to be confusing for them. So they show up and they do not show out in this game. Jeremiah Love goes for 167 and a touchdown. Huge pick six early in this game by Tay Johnson off of Mason Heinzel. He did not play his greatest game of the season. I don't think he had a pretty solid passing output at all. Throwing an interception and I think maybe one touchdown in this game. They didn't run the ball very well. They were 0 for 13 on third down.
Oof.
It's just a recipe for a loss against a team like Notre Dame every single time. Jeremiah Love had an insane touchdown run in this game. Put a guy in a blender with a spin cycle move. Absolutely elite. I think that vaulted him into legitimate Heisman conversation. Just the fact that's a Heisman play. Put that on a highlight reel. His stats don't really pop off the paper. I was comparing him to Kawan Lacey the other day. He's got better yards per carry and he's got more receiving yards, but he's got less touchdowns. And Kawan Lacey's nowhere to be found on any Heisman odds ever. So I think that's kind of odd considering Notre Dame's got two losses and Ole Miss has one. There's that much variance in those two players, but the kind of plays that Jeremiah Love is making are really impressive. So you got to give him credit where credit's due. I think that the over 13 on third downs was what stood out to me the most in this game. I mean, Pitt being the passing offense that they are, you can't go over 13 on third down. That means that you're passing the ball most likely on first, second, and third down if you're going over 13.
Yeah.
That's the kind of recipe where you're getting stuffed on first down and then you get into obvious passing situations and Notre Dame just tees off on you, which is in essence what happened in this football game. Notre Dame actually lost the turnover battle in this one and still handily won this. They actually had a really weird sequence of events where I think Pitt got a pick six on Notre Dame, and then ended up having a 2 point conversion. I think get housed on them. So really crazy stuff.
Huh.
Really weird turn of events. But at the end of the day, I think this Notre Dame football team has improved throughout the season, but their quality of opponents has not really been that great. So it's going to probably end up taking um, a home playoff game for them to prove what their worth is against a really solid team. Like maybe in Oklahoma, or if they end up getting a rematch against Miami, which apparently the committee really wants Miami to make the playoff. We saw that today. So would love to see that. If Notre Dame ends up making the playoff, I would love for them to get a rematch with Miami. I think that would be best possible scenario for the playoff committee and honestly for the playoffs in general, because we wouldn't have to watch Georgia Tech or Virginia line up against anybody. So
For sure.
would love to see that. But Notre Dame takes care of business here. Not really much to be said. I don't really have anything else for this one unless you had anything, Landon.
I was gonna say that Pat Narduzzi's just an absolute weirdo. I'm gonna be
He's
honest.
a goober.
They had him on game day. He's just a weirdo. He's just I'm not even surprised that he said what he said after hearing him talk on there. He's just a strange dude.
Yeah, and sometimes that's just how college football is. It takes some strange dudes to wake up at 4:30 every morning and be like, okay, today and for the next 6 days of this week, I'm going to put 110% of my life into coaching football every day, where we try to figure out how we can advance a oval brown ball into the end zone with 11 dudes. Like, it takes a weird guy to commit their whole life to that. So you can give him a little slack, but he's definitely one of the weirder ones I've ever seen. And you look at guys with a lot of character like Mike Leach, who are pretty quirky and pretty bubbly as football coaches, but they know exactly what they're talking about. They're savants of the sport, and Pat Narduzzi may not be a savant, but I mean, he's been a great football coach for Pittsburgh over the past couple of years, despite how much of a goober he may be. Um, there are weird coaches out there. I think he's definitely one of them.